What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining us for another video. Today I'm joined by my man Jason, the man behind the lens here at DCF.
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
And so today we're going to be talking about one of his favorite things. We're going to be talking about custom sneaker photography.
So I think Dillon and I had a similar goal when it came to YouTube, was to kind of create this community where we could help all the other customizers. And something that we always get asked about is to either review your guys' Instagram profiles or just overall sneaker photography tips on like how to shoot a lot better photos. So we felt like it was time to make a video where we could actually show you guys how to take better photos, how to look for certain environments that match the textures of the shoes, and to also show you guys that you don't need the best equipment in the world to take the photos that everyone else is taking.
So our goal for today's video was to show you guys 5 different shoes that we've created and walk you through the process of how we first go about shooting them. So once I finish this shoe, Jason and I will start to have a discussion on the overall vibe that we're trying to accomplish with the photo set, because you know the project isn't complete just once you finish painting the shoe. Now you need to present it to the world, and how you do that through the lens really matters in the long run. So we're going to be talking you guys through each of the 5 shoes and showing you how we shot them with an iPhone and how we shot them with a professional DSLR also, along with some little tips and tricks along the way. So let's go ahead and get things started.
So when I initially picked up this Freddie Jordan 1, I want to look for an environment that's kind of grungy and looks abandoned to go with the overall theme of the shoe. But we also wanted to look for places that everyone can find around them in a neighborhood. So we went to our nearby alley and actually found like a little empty spot in the alley that had like branches and fallen trees. So it looked a little cool to go with the shoe. And there was this beam that was actually a little rusty, which fit the textures of the shoe really well.
So then I know, like you said, utilizing that beam that we found right there, I think we did a classic pose that really works well for almost any shoe, of kind of angling them up onto the beam, and then you have this really kind of perfect angle that captures the front of the shoe, the side of the shoe, the tongue of the shoe. Typically that tends to work really well for capturing a lot of the design, and it's definitely a pose that you see us do quite often.
So another shot that I like to do, I like to grab elements or objects that are already in the environment and put it in front of the lens. For example, in this shot, I put some leaves in front of the lens to really describe the environment and to create a lot more depth within the picture.
And so now we're going to show you guys how some of these shots came out raw, straight out of the camera from both the iPhone and the Canon DSLR.
And really quick before we move on to the next shoe, I used to make the mistake of not editing any of my photos after I shot them, but after I learned a little bit more and I watched a little bit more on how to edit and color correct, I started to edit all my photos, because even with a little bit of saturation or even like the right exposure, you're adding a lot more life to your picture, and that's really what sells your product.
So next, for this Kanye shoe, the overall vibe that we were trying to achieve was of course like a street vibe. So what we did was walk to our local park, and we had this maroon basketball court. It fit pretty well with these colors that are already on the shoe, these pinks and purples, and the maroon just kind of added to it also. So the few shots that we did are some top-down overall shots, and there was some cracking within the courts that played up well. Then within a basketball court, you have the paint lines. This was an older court, so it had kind of old looking paint lines that just added to this just street, nice texture feel to capturing these.
So like Dillon said, I was really interested in the cracks because I know this adds a really nice like background to the shoe. So when I'm shooting top down, I look for these little small details so that it adds a little bit more to the picture without taking too much away from the shoe. So typically we do like to go for this angle up shot, but the issue with being in a basketball court that's around a lot of houses, you're gonna get stuff such as gates and houses and cars that you don't really want in the shot. So this is just to show you guys that you don't have to always go for the shot that everyone gets if it doesn't work with your shoe. And I personally don't think that this shot works that well, because you have colors such as green in the picture which interfere with colors on the shoe, such as the pinks and the maroons and the purples. So if I would have had a little bit more extra time and maybe like a nicer hoop to hang the shoes around, I would have probably done that and probably shot them like facing up.
That would have been a cool shot. So yeah, I think that this was a pretty good example of one of the most common mistakes that we see when we look at a lot of other people's stuff, of what you really want your background to do is add to your shoe, at least not distract from it. And if you have things in the background that obviously shouldn't be there, such as gates, other people's houses, it can take away a little bit from the design. There is a time and place for that potentially, but in this case, it didn't add to the overall feel and vibe of the shoe in any way. So that wasn't the main shot that we would end up choosing for a shoe like this.
Here's a couple pictures of how they look unedited and edited. Since we're going for a street vibe, there's a very common edit along with these type of shoes. Essentially, it's just a fade, but it's actually done with tone curve, so you have a little bit more control of your exposures and your lights and your highlights all at once. So if you guys want more information how I specifically edit that kind of style, we'll be talking about it a little bit more on Patreon. So if you're interested, head over there. So next we have this bright red LV Supreme cleat. And a quick tip for whenever you're shooting a red cleat, you should always remember that the complementary color of red is green, so you want to go for really bright green grass. Your red is going to pop, and since grass is a natural environment for cleats, it's a natural fitting photo.
Yeah, so I think that this was definitely the easiest choice of the day. Just like you said, working with the red cleat, we know it's going to fit perfectly on top of some really green grass. And one thing that I know we always do anytime we're shooting outdoors, especially shooting on grass, is you really want to make sure to find a shaded area. This is going to help you with your lighting. If you try shooting in direct sunlight, you're going to have a little bit more of a hard time making sure that your photo isn't overexposed. You can tend to get weird glares and things that might take away a little bit from the design. So if you can find a nice shaded area, that's just going to make your life a whole lot easier. And now here's a quick look at these photos unedited and some edited shots. So for the final two shoes of the day, our goal for these was to shoot them indoors on some naturally occurring environments or textures that a lot of people have within their own household. And shooting indoors can present a couple challenges because you're no longer going to be in that natural sunlight, which is by far the best lighting that you can get for almost any type of photo. So when shooting things indoor, we do like to pull up a couple extra lights. I have these Medusa head style lights that I picked up from Target a couple years ago. They have 5 separate bulbs that attach to them, and you can angle the lights in any direction, so they work incredibly well for stuff like this. And one of those household textures that we think a lot of people might have that we wanted to try shooting these on was some hardwood flooring.
So the shoe is really colorful and it has this beige base to it. We didn't want to put it against a background that kind of matched the base color, or else the shoe would get lost. So the gray hardwood that we have in the studio actually was a perfect fit for it. So for everybody shooting an iPhone, the camera does a really good job in low light situations. But for me, for example, I shoot on my Canon 5D. I typically have a hard time adjusting settings to get the lighting that I want. So bringing in some additional lights really makes a huge difference. Also, really quick, for those of you guys using your iPhone, you might get situations like these when you want to switch between the portrait mode and just the regular camera, because in this situation I got a picture with the regular camera that was really washed out and the colors weren't saturated. But when I switched to my portrait mode, it kind of brought out those colors and gave me a little bit more exposure, so that my pictures actually look a lot better on portrait mode, even if portrait mode wasn't the best setting to use. So just alternate between those modes and you can see what works best for you. And here are some of the edited photos versus unedited photos.
So for our last shoe, we're going to be working with this Dragon Ball Z Yeezy. It has the Shenron featured throughout, right across the stripe. Obviously, a lot of the shoe is still black, and it being a Yeezy, we thought it would be pretty cool to go for an elegant style look with these. And so one of the first things that came into our mind when first talking about how we would shoot these is it would be really cool if we were able to capture a white marble look. Obviously, the black shoe would really pop up against some white marble, but since we don't have any white marble tables or countertops to work on, we had to start pondering what some options could be. And so we decided on testing out some contact paper. And what this is it's very similar to vinyl. You peel it from backing, and then all we did was place this right on top of a table, a small little section, just big enough to fit the one shoe. And here you can see some shots of Jason shooting it from up above. And you're not working on a huge surface. This is a really tiny area. It's just big enough to fill up the entire frame of the photo and fit the one shoe.
So when it comes to the actual photo itself, the lighting setup would be the exact same for the Medusa lights that we used for the hardwood photo. And like Dillon said, I got up really high because the table itself is really high, so I would want to be able to see what I'm shooting when I have my phone above me and my camera above me. Hopefully you guys can see this, but the thing with these Yeezy V2s is that when you lay it down on a table flat like this is the angle that you'll be able to see it when it's facing directly to the camera. So naturally what you want to do is prop up the shoe so that it becomes level to the camera and you're able to see the design. So what we did was make a ball out of tape to prop up the shoe to give it the angle that we desire.
And so now here's some shots of how these came out with both the iPhone and the Canon DSLR. So I think that this one was long overdue, man. This is, like you said, something that we get asked all the time, if we could review somebody's Instagram profile and just give them some feedback on areas where we think that they can improve. And one of the first things that we typically notice is that the level of photography can always go up a little bit to another level. And speaking of frequently asked questions, we actually have a video coming out later this week, Ask DCF Episode 1, where we're going to be going over the most asked questions that we get from you guys.
Also, don't forget, guys, that the horror contest ends this Friday. We've already gotten a ton of submissions, a lot of really promising finalists. So if you haven't entered and you're planning on enter, make sure you're entering by this Friday. Because after that, all submissions will be closed and we'll be taking notice of when everyone entered. So as always, make sure you guys leave your suggestions for videos in the comment section below, because we look at every single comment and we take every video suggestion into consideration.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Go ahead and give this video a like if you haven't already. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in a couple days.